Welcome, 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 everybody. This is Reverend Karen from Fearlessly Feral Living, and I'm featuring a very special guest today. Her name is Reverend Kit Holmes. Any relation, by the way, to Ernest way back when?
Several years ago, I was playing with Ricky Byers, and she asked me the same question, and I went into a very long description, and she put her hand on my arm gently, and she said, "Just say yes." So, if you check my genealogy, no, but I like to say because we're all one, yes, yes, I am related to Ernest Holmes. So,
Perfect. Thank you. That's a very good answer. So, before I introduce Reverend Kit, I'd like to go into my own introduction. So, welcome again to Fearlessly Feral Living, and I am broadcasting to you from the Woogie Ranch out here in the back 40 of northwestern Nevada, where I'm a half an hour away from the nearest gas station and the nearest grocery store. And our mission here at Fearlessly Feral is to provide a strong and unshakable inner foundation that works for long term successful living. Our purpose is to activate inner self awareness, and our vision is a world in which everyone lives wild and free. And my guest today, again, Reverend Kit Holmes. Now, Reverend Kit has been a minister since 2021. She is a licensed religious science minister, and she's been a practitioner since 2010. She lives in Michigan after a 20-year stint in the Austin, Texas music scene. And I love what she wrote about herself. So I'm going to read this to you. Reverend Kit has been sharing her extraordinary musical gifts and engaging messages with New Thought communities around the United States since 2004. She's a licensed religious science minister, which we already said, a certified transformational life coach, which sounds really interesting, and I might ask you about that later. A recovering perfectionist, and that sounds interesting too. We might talk about that. A recent breast cancer and divorce survivor who uses her experiences as teaching tools for healing body, mind, and spirit. And I love that because I also use my experience as teaching tools. And yeah, we might talk a little bit about that too, about some of the questions we get. So, by any measure, Kit Holmes' musical gifts alone are extraordinary, but it is the sheer volume of her additional talents and creativity that explain the adulation she regularly receives from audiences, critics, clients, and peers for her keynotes, classes, coaching, and retreats. So here we have Reverend Kit Holmes, and I've asked her to start us off today with a song. So, Kit, I'm going to leave it to you.
thank you so much, Karen, and it's so good to be here. This is an original song called "All I Know," and it's kind of not kind of, it is autobiographical, and we can talk about it in a little while. It was another lousy day at work, so at lunch I took a drive to figure out just how it was that all my dreams had died. Down a red dirt road was an old wooden church on the edge of a cotton field. Big old ancient oak tree waving to me in the breeze. So I pulled up right next to it, pleased with the choice I'd made. I was gonna find some peace, by God, in that tree's majestic shade. I didn't expect what I heard next, since I thought I was alone. A gentle voice said, "I'm so glad you found your way back home." And it said, "The answer you're looking for is right inside your heart. Why not try to open it wide? You'll find a brand new place to start. All I know is time won't wait. It slips like water through your hands. And you should know that it's not too late to make a change in plans." I'm staring at this old woman. She was about as old as that old tree. An amazing fire was in her eyes, and she was staring back at me. I asked her where she came from and if I'd lost my sanity. She said, honey, when you ask for help, you ended up with me. She said, the answer you're looking for is right inside your heart. Why not try to open it wide? You'll find a brand new place to start. All I know is time won't wait. It slips like water through your hands. And you should know that it's not too late to make a change in plans. It's all I know. So I woke up under that sprawling oak as day turned into night. A gentle breeze had spread the leaves, and a single ray of light became that woman's smile as she disappeared from sight. How else could I thank her but to act on her advice? The answer I was looking for was in my heart, it's true. I changed my plans, and here I am, singing all my songs for you. And all I know is time won't wait. It slips like water through your hands. And you should know that it's never too late to make a change in plans. It's all I know. It's all I know. It's all I know.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So tell me a little bit about how that song came to be, because when we were talking before we started the recording, I asked Kit what kind of song she wanted to play, and she responded with a question back to me, what was the focus of this podcast? And I said, well, it's about successful transformations. It's about living life successfully by going within and building an unshakable inner foundation. It's about inner self-awareness and fearlessly feral living, which of course is wild and free. And she knew immediately which songs she wanted to play. So now I'm really curious, out of all the probably hundreds of songs that you've written, why that one?
That was really the first song. I call it my signature story song. And as I said before I played it, it is autobiographical. At the time, I was living in a small town in University of Georgetown, Athens, Georgia, and I worked in a town east of Atlanta, about an hour, a little town called Madison, in Madison, Georgia. And I was in the music, quote unquote, music business. It was a compact disc manufacturing facility. And I was head of the what was called the mastering department. And way back when we made CDs in the late 80s and early 90s, I've been a musician all my life. I mean, I had my first professional gig when I was 13, and I was always playing music, but I was never writing it. I was not the lead singer. I was just the keyboard player. I was just the backup singer. You know, that was my self-image. I grew up in a musical family, but that was like my role. I never thought of myself as a lead singer or in that, standing out being the star. And so I'm working all these years with day jobs. I'm playing in garage bands and bar bands and all the kind of stuff all through my 20s. And I was in my early 30s, and this day job was actually a very good one. I mean, I was a salaried employee in this great benefits package and all of these things. And what we did is we got the master tapes from the record companies, from A&M and from like the Whitney Houston, when all the Whitney Houston albums came out and stuff. We would get the masters and then do our magic to get them transferred onto, a pressed CD. So I heard a lot of music, and there came this time where, it was a corporate job. Plain and simple. It's a corporate job. I was not cut out for that kind of thing. I was in a supervisor's position. It was very stressful. I knew that there was a kind of a glass ceiling. I didn't know that's what it was called at the time. But I would literally go on my lunch hour, I would go for a drive. And there was a red dirt road with a wooden church with actually not just one, but 3 great big oak trees. And it was probably some Southern Baptist little country church, little picnic tables outside underneath these trees. And I would go sit on the picnic tables at my lunch hour to just kind of debrief. And my partner at the time had several family deaths in a very short amount of time. And it just those really hits of tragedy and that like unexpected things. And the line that came through was, all I know is time won't wait. It slips like water through your hands. You should know that it's not too late to make a change in plans. And didn't know what to do with it. I attached it to this other song, but it was like, this is that kind of thing, because something was already beginning to come through. This was the early 90s. And I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. I want to do music, blah, 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 but I got to have a day job. I got to pay the rent, that kind of thing. And what the pattern was throughout my life from that point forward was I would have these day jobs and I'd put all of my effort, all of my, I wanted to be the good person and do it right and put 150% in. But my music would suffer because I would put all my energy into working for someone else. And so I would do that little swing back and forth day job, pay the bills, get really, this isn't mine to do. It's like, I'm going to quit that job. I'm going to start my own studio. And I had started that song in 1993, All I Know. I'd start the first version of that. And I was in a band at the time, and I knew nothing really about songwriting, in my opinion. My belief was they came through completely written, and inspiration strikes, and there's a finished song, and that just keeps happening. Well, I was in this band with an actual songwriter, and she would bring, every week to rehearsal, she would bring a song, and it would have like 8 verses and 3 different choruses and a couple options for the bridge. And it would just like workshop them and work out what the best stuff was, worked it out, settle it down. I was like, wow, here's this process. So I brought the first version of All I Know to that band. And everybody liked the music, and the original title of it was Wandering. And, it was like, and I could tell I'd get to a certain point in the song and I would lose them. They're like, well, that's good, but. So I played with it for a number of years. Fast forward, I moved from Athens, Georgia. I've had my own studio, my own mastering studio. I left that corporate job, moved to Austin, Texas. And I went to a songwriting workshop. And it was one of those things where I was the only person in the room that needed to hear what this person said in that moment. And something flipped the switch immediately. And from that workshop, I went home and I rewrote that. Because 10 years later, I had already gotten in my spiritual practice. I'd found Science of Mind. All this kind of stuff just gelled. And it was the right moment, absolutely the right moment, that said, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to find your voice. I've been a musician all my life, but my voice was in my writing. So that was the first one, and that song became actually one of the first ones that I won a songwriting award for, because it was like, I listened, I did the little thing, I adjusted it. I think I workshopped it a couple more times in some small groups, and that was it. So, and it is my life story. I've had many day jobs since then, but my spirituality, what led me on that path to Science of Mind, was my songwriting started to reflect. My songwriting was my therapy, and so reflected all these things that I'm learning about myself and learning about my consciousness and spirituality and all these things. And I was like, wow. So it really is that full circle. When I do concerts and stuff, I basically tell a shorter version of the same story. Is this is that place where I made a decision that said, I'm going to figure this out. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Still moving forward, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and becoming a minister and all of those things. But I incorporate, as you read in my bio, I incorporate the songs into my talks. I incorporate the messages with that. So that's why I chose that song.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with that. A song that is literally years in the making, years.
Yeah,
And sometimes it takes us that long to progress in our own lives.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was 10 years. 10 years from the beginning of that first iteration until that rewrite, and
Hmm.
then it was like, okay, there we go.
Yes. Now that brings me to a question. Is this song available? Like, do you have it posted on a music site somewhere that people can purchase
Yeah,
it?
yeah. It's on the website, which is kitholmesmusic.com or kitholmesinc, kitholmesinc.com. Either one will get you there. And there
Okay.
is a page that has all of my music on it, and it is called All I Know.
All I know. Okay. And I'll be posting that web address, kitholmesmusic.com, in the show notes if you want to go and check out her website later. Yes.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
So tell me about this recovering perfectionist stuff, because so I've met people who were perfectionists before. I've worked with them, I've coached them. And what seems to happen with them is that they have such low self esteem that they have to do everything perfectly in order to justify their existence. And they have to do it so perfectly that they get stuck sometimes and they can't accomplish anything at all. And so the journey to recover from perfectionist, at least in my mind, is to build the self-esteem to the point where my existence, our existence, is cherished and valuable simply because we're here.
Yeah,
We don't need a reason.
yeah,
And so we build the self-esteem, and then we start looking at the perfectionism and exploring, well, what would happen if I did this and it wasn't perfect? And then kind of move through in that way. And I'm really happy to report that that seems to have worked. So, with the folks that I've worked with, I've never had that issue with perfectionism. I'm like, yeah, it's good enough. We're good. We're good. I have had an issue with self esteem, and I have
mm-hmm.
used that as a teaching tool. And it's been a long, long journey to get to where I'm at today. So, tell me about how you came to be a recovering perfectionist.
It's that thing that I like to call forced surrender,
Okay.
where you get to a you can I think you know what I'm talking about. You get to a point in your life where you realize it's not working, and that the more I would push in that mindset is I got to do it better. I just have to keep doing it better. I have to keep doing it better and better and better and better and better. And then there is no end to something being perfect, because nothing is
Yeah.
perfect except the perfect whole and complete that we are in, our wholeness as spiritual beings. That is perfect. And who gets to define what perfect is? That's the thing. And it really is a self-esteem thing, absolutely. That and that's my learning and my growing up was nothing was ever good enough. Nothing was ever good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
the experience that I had growing up in a family where there was addiction and dysfunction. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of things around that. So what do you do as a kid? It's like, well, if I just do this better, they're going to love me. If I do it this way, they're going to love me. If I do it this way, they're going to love me. So what I learned in moving forward through all of these years is um, there was no outlet. Like I said, my songwriting was a certain level of therapy,
Mhm.
but it's also, it requires that you be very vulnerable. I mean, I wrote a lot of songs that are very safe and a very, you know, like, I'm not going to get too personal in this, but those don't connect with people. And the more we open and say, you know, I'm faulty, look at me, or just to be able to say, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in that place where I had to have an answer, right or wrong. I had to have some kind of an answer for something, for everything. So the recovering part is um, really just in the last few years. As I said, it said in the bio, I've survived a divorce. Well, you know, I graduated in 2021. I licensed as a minister, and in 2021, I graduated from ministerial school. I moved across the country. I asked for a divorce. I turned. Let's see. Um, there was some job stuff in there too that became very that didn't work out so well. I was still under contract in another place I was working. Um, and then in all of the middle of that, I turned 60, and just as I thought things were going to shift, I got a breast cancer diagnosis. And I knew when I went into meditation, like it came through in a meditation about 2 weeks after I got the diagnosis, it said, I heard that voice that said, this is all the toxicity, this is all the unexpressed emotion, this is all the stuff that you've been holding in all your life. And even though I had been doing a lot of work to start moving that energy, it basically was, it got trapped. And it got trapped in my body right next to my heart, of all places. So the recovering part is that I'm human. I can't carry all of this. I have to decide what's my responsibility, what is other people's, what emotions am I responsible for? Are these really my fears? Are these fears that were given to me? Are these beliefs that I really just don't believe? And there was a lot of that with my family, of family of origin. I came out when I was 22, and from that situation, it was rocky, especially with my mom. So it's a daily process of
Mhm.
letting go and trusting and just saying, you know, this is going to be what it's going to be. I'm going to do my best, but I'm not going to kill myself if it's not perfect. So I hope that helps.
It does, and I identify with so much of that too. I the the family of origin stuff and the low self-esteem and the huge volume of upheavals, what my coach called upheavals and dismantling that happened in my life during ministerial school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just talking about this with someone, yeah, a ministerial, someone who's in ministerial school right now. And I repeated to her what the person I was working with at the time told me. And he said, Karen, there's always a certain amount of dismantling that has to occur in your life in order to make room for you to be a minister.
Mm-hmm.
And I mumbled and grumbled about that and complained about it. But yeah, there was a lot of dismantling there.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be 70 in November, and this is my 10th year of ministry. So I turned 60 during ministerial school also, and retired from, well, I waited till after ministerial school to officially retire from my previous career and then
Mm-hmm.
start in with my new career of ministry. And yeah, yeah. So now I'm 10 years into
Yeah.
it, and I'm remembering when I was, so you're 2021, 3 years into it. Sorry, I got to count on my fingers when I do that. You're 3 years into ministerial school. Do you
Mm-hmm.
know what you want to be when you grow up?
That's so funny you say it that way, because that's the way I identify it too. Is what I still don't know what I'm going to be. Um, I'm clear, and I've always been clear when I got into ministerial school that I didn't want to run a church. I didn't want a pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while I was in actually before I got into ministerial school, I was a music director at a Unity in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and a longtime music director. And in 2018, I came on as the title they gave me was associate spiritual leader because I wasn't an ordained minister, and Unity had to figure out some title to give me. So it was a collaborative ministry. It was very creative and very dynamic. Um, and it was the best internship I ever could have had because it was like, if I didn't want to run a church before, I'm really clear I don't want to do it now.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and there was so many pluses about it, and there were things that, again, with that day job thing, is being in one place is not mine to do. Um, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a minister and a musician and a speaker, um, but that involves and expanding upon that. My ministry is developing into that's what I do is I travel and virtually. I'm been doing virtual services for numerous places since COVID,
Mm-hmm.
um, to speak and do music and message, either pre-recorded or whatever. Um, and then I do where I am locally. I'll be in person if they have an in-person service. So what I want to be when I grow up is I want to expand on that with retreats and so forth because I love doing retreats. I love doing concerts. And there is, like I said, the teaching in my music. I slip it in there, so that it may sound like secular music because I rarely use the word God or spirit. In my congregational songs, yes, but generally I don't reference it, and that was always very intentional. And what I find really interesting is that there's so much what I consider new thought music that is not. It's just in popular music today because that message is getting out there. Our teaching is getting out there about
Mm-hmm.
consciousness and so forth. So I'm going to continue to expand. And what I've learned, of course, is I really have to trust because ministry and music are the two professions that one does not usually make a ton of money in. Unless you really get to, unless you really get to a certain level of notoriety, So I just keep trusting and keep creating, and going from there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any last minute tidbits or words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience today?
Would be absolutely lean in to trust, surrender, repeat. Trust that well, get clear, get quiet, get clear, get quiet on what it is that spirit wants to express through you, and even especially the stuff that you feel absolutely totally resistant to, like I did when I got the call for ministerial school. So get quiet, get clear, and then trust, and surrender, and keep taking the baby steps.
I particularly like the part about leaning into the messages you get, even if they don't make sense.
Yeah,
Like the call to ministerial school, because I didn't want to do that either.
me neither.
Did not want to do that either. Now I'm very grateful and happy that I did.
Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Me too. I'm grateful you did too. So
Thank you. One last follow-up question to what you just said. What does it feel like to trust and surrender?
since I've been practicing it, initially it feels real shaky because it's getting the voice of the ego out of the way. That's like, well, is this really intuition or is this my ego doing this? But there is a sense. It's a physical alignment. I guess that's the way I describe it.
Mhm.
Where there is, for me, it's a feeling between my gut, my heart, my head, and it's like it's almost edgy, but it's very subtle, but when it's there, and I've gotten used to recognizing it, to say, okay, I'm in the zone. I know that my consciousness is aligning with the truth that is what's true for me. And so it's exhilarating too, because there is a knowing. There's an absolute knowing when I'm in that place, and everything just unfolds beautifully. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we're at the end of our time here today. So I'm going to close the recording in a minute here. And Kit, stay on. Don't leave yet, because we've got a couple little closing things to do after I stop the recording. So I just want to close with this. I am knowing fearlessly feral living for you and for me. And fearlessly feral living is a focused ministry of Centers for Spiritual Living, as is the work of Kit. And all of our websites will be posted in the show notes of this podcast so that you can go and check things out and make donations, which are totally tax deductible and very much appreciated. And thank you, thank you, thank you.